guys, welcome. If it's your first time here, it is Bold TV. This is basically a storytelling channel, but not only why am I putting but. Anyway, so it's not just a storytelling channel because I'm a writer and I'm still doing some research on the book that I'm working on. The books that doesn't need research is usually the children's books that I write, because those are imaginations and some of the stories I just come up with as I go, right? But this other book, just I'm doing a little bit of research because it does requires a little bit of research. That's why. So in the meantime, once I'm done with the research, then I'm gonna come here, guys, and go to the next step of writing the book, and I'll walk you guys through step by step. And what I forgot to mention in my previous book is if you are interested in writing a book, which I don't think most people are interested in writing anyways, is that it's very important while you're doing your research, brainstorming and stuff, to also be looking for a publisher if you don't have a publisher. Okay, it's actually another research by itself. The reason being you need a lot of more publishers. The reason is because sometimes you'll send them your work and they're not going to accept it, right? Unless you're Michelle Obama or you are Barack Obama or Oprah, most publishers will not just accept your work because they're already receiving millions of manuscripts from people that want to publish, right? So that's one option. That should not prevent you. Still continue to look for publishers while you are. And at times some of the pages are interesting. You might say that, okay, I'm just looking for publisher and then I'll get back to them, but sometimes writing to them actually does require you to submit something, right? So if you have I don't know, a draft or few extra manuscript that you think is good enough, you can use those for while you are searching, because when you get to a website that want you to submit something, then you have something to submit. Otherwise you can just compile all types of publishers and also look at their work and see if whatever you're planning to publish, it's what they do, because different publishing company work in do different things, right? Yeah, once you have that in order, then you can obviously send your manuscript and start planning. And the other option is also to self-publish. Okay, I did get in touch with few publishers which I think they can publish, but most of them are actually in the US. I wasn't successful in finding any in Canada. There are a lot of things that I've always been wanting to do in Canada. It's just too complicated. So, but when I go across the border, it's actually very easy. So for me, I decided to self-publish, and everything is done in the US, and it's just as easy peasy, right? Anyway, so that's something I thought I should just add for those who are interested in writing. And once I'm done with with my research and I'm ready to start putting things down, I also come here and walk you guys through it. Okay, now the reason for this video is just to, of course, add the point of looking for publishers and what you need to do while you're looking for publishers. It is good to do both hand in hand. You can be looking for publishers while you're also brainstorming. The moment you're done with your manuscript, then you can send them the information. But if you already have a short manuscript, you can also use that, because as I said, some publishers, when you go to their website, they do require that you submit something, which you don't have to, but it's always good to have something handy. Okay, now the next thing is, it's still cold, guys. It's Canada, it's freezing. And then the next point that I wanted to make in this video is I came across a video of Michelle Ngoji. At first when I saw the name, I thought it meant Njoroge, but I'm sure it has nothing to do with Njoroge. Her and her husband were talking about what should you do, what should one do while waiting for God. I thought it was a very good video. And just to add to what they talked about, which makes a lot of sense, they raised a lot of great topics, but this is just gonna be very short. Me wanting, I'll actually tag them, is what do you do when you're waiting for God's time. A classic example is while I was at school, I knew that I wanted to publish some books someday. And then most of my friends at the time, if I told you guys in my previous video, I used to have a lot of friends. I used to have like an entourage, you know. I used to have a really big group, even here while I was at the university. And at the university here, I used to write essays also for money. If I noticed that maybe some science students or even some health science, whether health science students or, you know, just regular anyone that is looking for help with their essay, what I used to do is I will have my advertisement and then just have someone, you know, link up with me, and then for a fee I'll write their essay and I get paid. But during that time I was also writing my manuscript and I wanted to start publishing at that time. But at the time, some of the friends that I had were telling me that no, you cannot do it, you know, you're not going to hear from anybody. It's very difficult. If publishing books was easy, everyone would have been doing it, blah, blah, blah. So I will say that few of them actually discouraged me, but they probably have, maybe it was just coming from a good place, right? I would say it was coming from a good place as they were, you know, advising me. I wanted you guys to see this top. This is actually a very nice top, but the camera is not doing justice. Plus, I'm kind of cold, so anyways, back to the story. Yeah, so where was I? Yeah, so I wouldn't say they discouraged me, but it was probably coming from a good place, telling me, you know what, you don't need to do that, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't stop. I just continued to write. Then I was like, you know what, I'm going to wait for God's time, but I don't want to wait for God with my hands folded, right? I'm going to wait for God, but I'm also going to keep writing. And when there's an opportunity comes, at least the manuscripts are ready. But instead of just saying, let me wait for God, as while I'm doing nothing, that doesn't really make any sense, right? So anyways, so I continue to write my manuscript, continue to review them, found some editors to help me to edit and whatnot, and I kept them. I kept at least maybe 18 or 19 manuscripts that were ready for publish. But even few years after I've graduated, still nobody was saying, hey, we can publish your work. Nobody came through. So then I decided that, you know what, I'm just going to do self-publish. And there was a time I met another writer. He's from Zimbabwe but lived in Denmark. He also worked with the Zimbabwean I'm not sure it's news. Is it a newspaper that he worked with, or he worked with one of the stations, right? And then of course, as we were chatting, and then I asked him that, hey, I have a lot of work that I need to publish. I don't seem to hear from publishers, but some of the publishing companies that I hear from, the story is 1, 2, 3. What do you suggest? It's like, just do self-publish. So he showed me some steps on how to self-publish, and I went ahead. I was able to publish, and it really worked because I published a lot of books back to back. Like up to now, I can say I have published probably up to 23 books. Someone might think that, oh, you're publishing a new book every year. It's not like I'm finishing a book in a year. It's because I had those manuscripts already written from years back, right? While waiting for God's time. And some of those books are bestsellers on Amazon, and I have won some awards in some of those books. So waiting for God's time, you should not just fold your hand. You actually need to, do some work while you're, right? So as you're waiting, you also, as you're waiting for God's time, you also have to be working. I can give few examples for what happened to me. I also wanted to go to Harvard to do my graduate school, and of course I did bring it up. I was very close with my entourage, a big group of friends. I also brought that up, and we're like, nah, it's not for anybody. Even though you are smart, it's not like you're just gonna get there like that. Blah blah blah. Then I was like, okay. And the one thing with me is I like to ask for opinions, but in reality, I've already made up my mind of what I wanted to do. So I think and rethink and overthink sometimes, but at the end of the day, I know my decision. So I did that, and so when everyone was kicking against it, again, I'm still saying that it was probably coming from a good place. So I just decided that, you know what, I'm gonna put the work on it, because I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go by faith, and sometimes you have to put faith in action, right? You cannot just say that, okay, God will help me. Let me just sit here and get all these perfect grades, and God will help me someday. God will come down from heaven and say, hey, here, this is your acceptance letter. Now you can go to Harvard. Doesn't work like that. So I just decided that, I'm going to put the work, even though I'm going to let God, but at the same time, I also have to do my part. And faith is very important. Faith is very important. And you need to see it for you to have it, right? Because if you don't see it, you don't have it. That is scripture. If you see it, you have it. So I was like, before I go to Harvard, I want to see it. So I didn't just do imagination. I actually drew. I'm in Canada, so I actually went up to Boston. I went to Harvard, right? I went to the school, talked to different people, walked around, You know how the scriptures say, like, when, what is that scripture? About possessing your possession. Like, if you step at a place, then it is yours. I'm sure there is a scripture for that. I feel like there's none, but I guarantee you there is a scripture for that, right? I think there is a scripture for that. I think there is a scripture about that. I know my brain, the way my brain works. If my brain says something, it's probably I heard it somewhere. So anyways, yeah, so I did that, and the moment I saw it, I'm like, okay, I have it. So I'm like, okay, all I need to do is now go write down my application, do everything. And it's funny, when I put down my application, the first thing they were telling me that I need to write TOEFL. They were like, oh, because you went to school in East Africa, none of the East African countries speak English. I'm like, no, they actually do. Kenya, English is their first language. And I did my undergrad in Canada. So why are you telling me to do English? So, so they were really serious about me. They wanted me to do TOEFL. TOEFL is a type of English examinations that you have to do. I did TOEFL though when I was coming to Canada, after I got accepted to the undergrad school here in Canada. But I told Harvard, no, I'm not doing TOEFL. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And the reason being, because I'm like, when I was applying for undergrad to come to Canada, I was probably young and I was stupid. Maybe I could have fought that, but I didn't fight it. Because, you want to come to Canada, blah, blah, blah. We're still ignorant and, probably, probably not even, I was confident, but probably not enough to say, guys, this is not acceptable, right? And I still don't understand up to now why African countries that have English as their first language, you went to school in English, growing up speaking English, and then you come to an English speaking country, they are telling you that you need to do TOEFL so they can actually see whether you can actually speak English. And you know, the classes they are teaching is more like how to write things, how to write an essay, everything that you've already done in primary school and high school, right? Especially primary school. I remember we were taught, I was taught, well, in my primary school, we were taught how to write essays. By the time I was coming to high school, I already knew how to write essays, right? So anyways, back to Harvard. So they said, nope, for us to go ahead with your application, you need to do TOEFL. I was like, nope, no, ma'am. I was like, no, my application will be accepted, but I don't see any reason why I need to write TOEFL. I came from English-speaking country, and we spoke English. I also did undergrad here in Canada, and Canada is an English-speaking country. So I don't see any reason why I need to do the essay, or rather the TOEFL. So anyways, it was back and forth with Harvard until I don't know what happened. They accepted, so I didn't have to do TOEFL, and so that was the first hurdle that I dealt with, and then the next hurdle was what? Was there any other hurdle? No, that was the only one. The other hurdle was the fact that it is very expensive. I didn't see it coming. So if you're a Canadian citizen going to Harvard, you're actually paying as international students pay. So I'm not going to go into detail with Harvard, but just to go back to the point also of Michelle and her husband were making, was the fact that, which I agree with a lot of points that they raised, is you cannot just fold your hand and be saying that, okay, I'm waiting for God. You have to really take the next step. You have to take a leap of faith. You have to put your faith into practice. Like if I had just sat down and say, I want to go to Harvard, I'll go to Harvard, God will help me go to Harvard. It doesn't work like that. Even though you have perfect grade, getting to Harvard is not just relying on perfect grade. That's not the only way you can get to Harvard. There's a lot of things. So if you want to check my other previous videos that I made on how to get to Harvard, or how it worked for me anyways, then that might be helpful to you. So anyways, just add to what they were saying, waiting for God's time is important, but most importantly, while you wait for God, you also need to do your part. If you are looking for a dream job, start planning, start living that dream. Start walking, start behaving, start dressing like it, start talking like it, prepare everything like it, right? There's a lot of things that I ended up doing. I had to be it to become it, right? If you have this 6-figure job, well, I have more than 6 figures that I'm working, but I used to think that when someone works 6 figures, actually a lot of money, but it's not. But anyways, so if you want that 6-figure job, you definitely need to start thinking and behaving like one. Start putting your resumes together. Start practicing for interview. Start sending your resume to those jobs. And the moment you start sending resume, start preparing for interviews. Some people send resume and they just sit. Why did you send resume if you're not going to start planning for interview, right? Start planning for interview, start planning on dress codes, you plan for everything. So the moment you're saying that you want to become something, you have to start becoming it. If you are dreaming of whatever dream you are dreaming, you need to be it. You cannot just sit in a corner and just say it's going to happen. I will wait for God. Fasting and prayers is not going to do it. You have to act. Okay? Anyways, guys, that is it for now.